Thailand, it's my morning, but for most of you, it is Sunday evening. A great time to wrap up the weekend and move into the week, and really just to open our awareness and our listening so that we can take something and maybe learn something new this evening and join together as community. And so we just like to get ourselves set up to be able to listen. And we do that just by finding a way to sit comfortably so that we are not shifting around too much, that we can be stable in our seat. So take a moment to let your feet be planted firmly on the ground and to lengthen through your spine. Roll the shoulders up and back, any little movements that you need so that you can sit comfortably. Yeah, let the hands just rest in the lap. You can turn the head side to side. And if you can do so comfortably, closing the eyes. Taking a few deep breaths here, breathing in through the nose, filling up. And then exhale, sighing out the mouth. Taking these breaths as a way to land ourselves into the body. And feeling that the breath as you exhale can move through the entire body sitting here. Feeling the weight of your body in the chair. And feeling the connection points of your body with the chair and with earth beneath you supporting. And then letting your breath naturally come to its normal pattern, simply flowing in and effortlessly flowing out. Taking a moment to rest awareness here and to create just a little bit of space for listening. As we open to the gift of being together and to listening to great thought leadership and participating in whatever way makes sense for us, whether it be listening or chiming in with a question. And perhaps an invitation to just notice what you become aware of, what resonates for you. And anything that doesn't, knowing that that is not meant for you today. But perhaps you can take even just one thing as new, as learning. Take a deep breath in and exhale, let it go. Feeling back into yourself here, present, alert, aware, and relaxed. Opening the eyes.
That was beautiful. Thank you, Jordana, all the way from Thailand. So appreciate that. And now I just think this is a perfect time to introduce our special guest, which it's really beautiful how we came together through a mutual friend. And then we found out we're both Montrealers. So you know how that works. When you find out we're from the same city, it's like instant connection and just makes it feel that much more like it was meant to be. And there's so much I get to learn from you, Raghu, still, and get to know you. And I know this is just the beginning, but I appreciate you having trust in me and just jumping in and joining us tonight. So thank you.
Oh, glad to be here. Happy to be here. And the thing about Montreal, it's because it's the best city, along with San Francisco, the most beautiful in North America, with a mountain right in the middle, right?
Yep, that is true. So before we get into this, I do want to create some context and background about you. So you don't need to necessarily do that for yourself. So Raghu Markus joining us today is the executive director of the Love, Serve, Remember Foundation, which is dedicated to preserving and continuing the teachings of Ram Dass. And he had spent 2 years in India with Maharaji and Ram Dass. He really has an amazing background coming from the music industry and working actually in broadcasting from Montreal and in LA. Right now, he's also the host of the Mindrolling podcast on the Be Here Now network. And of course, that includes his work with the Love, Serve, Remember Foundation. But thank you, Raghu. If there's anything else that I missed here, there's probably a lot more, but
No,
feel free to. Feel free to add. But I mean, how does someone go from being, you know, a Montrealer in media to then meeting Ram Dass and really working alongside one of the foremost spiritual gurus in our lifetime?
He wouldn't like that. He would say, "Ain't no guru."
Okay. Yes. So what's the best wording for someone to use in that case?
He's a teacher. Ram Dass was a teacher, is still, because of 50 years of media we have that we're putting out all the time and creating new stuff around it. So yeah, teacher.
Yes. So tell me, how did that happen?
How does it happen?
Yeah.
You know, when you look back, actually Ram Dass's memoir is coming out this January. And you can just look into it and you can see whoever manages to get it and read it, the circumstances, the karmic circumstances that were perfectly developed from the point of the baby all the way to him leaving a year ago. The perfect circumstances of karma unfolding. I mean, it's more transparent with them because it was so dramatic. But the same thing with me. I'm just sitting in a radio station in Montreal, CKGM, by the way.
Yep.
Which became CHOM. And somebody just says, the receptionist said, "Hey, somebody's on the phone. They're giving a lecture at McGill. They want to talk to you." McGill is the big university in Montreal. So I said, okay. So they got on and said, we would love for you to do a promo for this lecture given by Ram Dass. I did not know. I knew Hare Krishna stuff, and I was into Eastern spirituality to a really superficial degree at that time. But I did not know I had never heard of Ram Dass. And I said, "Well, who's that?" And she said, "Tim Leary, Richard Alpert." And then I went, "Okay, love them." That was like, those were heroes. And I said, "Bring me send down a tape of Ram Dass from a previous lecture you must have." And they did. Came right to the radio station. I went right in, listened to it. Every word was like, "Oh shit, right." I put it on the air right away. It was a large station, 50,000 watt station in Montreal, a major station. And the switchboard lit up. People had never heard anything like this before. Translation of the truth from the East into a vernacular that we could understand in the West, and the honesty and all that stuff. Whoever's listened, heard the lecture of Ram Dass, get it right away. And then I said, "Well, I got to meet him." And I went and I walked in this house that he was staying in Montreal. And all that happened was he completely enveloped me in this vibration where he had nothing to do with it. There was no Richard Alpert. There was no Ram Dass. There was just this vibration. He was just being that thing that he got in India, as we say in Montreal, that thing there, right? So that divine presence. And I just immediately had this enormous trust. Okay, this kind of caring, kindness, compassion, all that stuff. I had maybe when I was a baby, maybe with my mother, but I don't remember. And that moment is to this moment, because as soon as I realized, okay, I got to meet this guy that Ram Dass is talking about, and it happened then we're talking, I see the whole arc of this karmic thing unfolding in a way that I had to just bow to. Namaste. And, I've, to the extent, of course, all of the causes and the conditions that we all have, that story we tell ourselves, which Ram Dass was so good at helping unravel for people, that's all still there. But it's just, after a while, as he said, you stop taking it all so seriously. I mean, his thing was around humor, and love and humor. That's there's a great movie for those of you who want to see, called Becoming Nobody, that we did put out last year, that is the arc of what that really means. The becoming nobody, it means basically letting go of the what I call the mini me that's telling the story. We believe all these thoughts. I mean, it's crazy when you really look at it. You go, whoa, really? So yeah, so that unraveling's been happening, but that moment of gigantic trust led to opening up a doorway to intuition. So I knew this was all perfect. And I have, of course, there's like everybody, there's a bunch of suffering along the way, and it's just how you relate with that, basically.
I love that. And Jordana is going to come in with some questions, as she's my lovely co-founder and co-host, and she's has been following you and a big fan. And so I love the family here today.
Yeah, Ram Dass has been one of my most influential teachers in my own teaching. He just makes me laugh and feel that, I love the film Becoming Nobody. As Raghu, you said, it is this movie that is a really wonderful summation of his teachings. He talks about our entire lives, we're trying to become somebody. And that actually the point is in becoming nobody. And maybe you can shed a little bit more light on that for us.
Yeah, people are like pissed. What do you mean becoming nobody? What am I supposed to walk around here as a nobody? I mean, kind of doesn't make any sense. It's similar to the thing. Whoever here is familiar with Buddhist teachings, the concept of emptiness, which for most people means some nihilistic kind of thing, and it's not nothing. It is not, emptiness is not nothing. Becoming nobody is not nothing either. And actually, on this last podcast I did, somehow I just been repeating this. It's so fantastic. Ram Dass had a whole podcast about selflessness, becoming zero, right? And it means that the attachment, clinging, judgmental, ego part of ourselves, it doesn't disappear. It just is not controlling anymore. And that's eventually where everybody, well, you'll get there. We all are going to get there at the moment of death, because then that true self is emerges in that moment. The idea is trying to get there before is a good idea. So this, do you want me to read this, or I'll read part of it?
Yeah, sure. Hey, we're here. We're hanging out.
It's by a great saint of the last century, Hazrat Inayat Khan, Sufi, who is also a wonderful musician. And selflessness produces humbleness in one's spirit, taking away the intoxication which clouds the soul. Independence and indifference, which are the two wings which enable the soul to fly, spring from the spirit of selflessness. The moment the spirit of selflessness has begun to sparkle in the heart of a human, he or she shows in word or action a nobility which no earthly power or wealth can give. To become something is a limitation, whatever it may be. Even if a person were to be called the king of the world, he would still not be the emperor of the universe. The master of the earth is still the slave of heaven. The selfless one is one who is no one and yet is all. That's a very poetic description of what becoming nobody basically is.
Wow, that's beautiful. I really like that. Even like all of those descriptions and the clouds, right? The clouds being all of the thoughts that we attach ourselves to, the identities that we take on that are just, as Ram Dass would say, it's part of our curriculum in becoming nobody, but that we get lost in it. We get lost in the roles that we play.
Very lost, as they say in India.
Well, yeah, like I think a lot of people are feeling that, including during this time, right? And how can we look at these philosophies and these themes and apply it to our lives now?
Well, first you got the perspective has to be there. You've got to switch that perspective out of, again, we keep referring to Ram Dass. I've been doing these podcasts with him on the Be Here Now network, so it's top of my mind, I guess. But it's changing the point of view from the mental judging little guy, little self, and moving it into the heart chakra, the soul, whatever, the true self. There's so many different, that's why I call it Shira, that thing there, right? So it's Montreal for, hey, I don't know how to really say this because I'm French speaking, but here it is. It's something like that thing there. So, and so there has to be a perspective shift, and so you have to do something, even if like Jordana, just that meditation, and you could use that same meditation you did, the breathing exercise, and then move it into pulling it in through the heart chakra. So you're pulling yourself out of this into that place, which is not judgmental. It's an awareness. He called it loving awareness. So it's a great meditation that he gives around loving awareness. So get the perspective. You got to have, the only way to do that is to do something that pulls you out. There's so many different practices. They all go to the same place. So you got to do that. But then you got to practice every day. You got to practice every day. It's just like whatever you want to do, to just from the lowest level of Western ego bullshit, you got to practice if you want to be better at it, right? So this is the case. Once that you get some regularity going and you stop thinking, I got to chant, I got to meditate, I got to do yoga, whatever it is that you do. Although I would suggest mindfulness with meditation is very effective. I mean, I'm a big fan of Buddha, period. And so, in fact, when we were in India, most of us that were with Neem Karoli Baba took these Vipassana insight meditation courses. They are to me, the most efficacious way to get into a meditative practice. And which uses the breath, and then it goes on from there. So we all had that basic training. And mindfulness, get Joseph Goldstein's book, by the way. Everybody's sitting here, called Mindfulness. Joseph Goldstein is one of the great teachers that we have in America who helped bring over the insight meditation. Him and Jack Kornfield and Sharon Salzberg, they've been close. We've been close to them forever, and they've been at many of the retreats over these many years that we were in Maui, or Ram Dass was in Maui, that we ran there. And we do stuff. I mean, Sharon just did something a week ago with another teacher, Dale Borglum. But Joseph's book, Mindfulness, seriously, it gives you such a great help in changing the perspective. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is just doing it without thinking, I got to do it. And that'll eventually happen. Just, you don't think you got to brush your teeth. It'll be at that level. And probably, but the biggest thing, and especially these days with what's going on, the most difficult thing because of COVID is satsang, being able to be with like-minded people and get the kind of support. No, you're not the only one out there thinking, that you have maybe some bad thoughts about different aspects of politically what's going on, or what had gone on, what's still going on. We're all in this together. And to that end, this is what we're doing, right? We're here right now. You're doing it, you guys. Jordana is
Yeah.
here.
Oh, and we appreciate you. And I think, yeah, you mentioned the polarity, and we're all in this together, yet we're still so divided. How do we come to terms with that in these, using these tools and not just in these spaces, but beyond these spaces?
When I find that out, I'll let you know in
Yeah.
myself. Okay. I mean, this is terribly, terribly difficult. Uh, and the only practice that I have had any getting anywhere near to stopping the judgmental thing about us and them, the thems, is part of this Vipassana practice. It's called loving kindness practice. Sharon Salzberg teaches it. Actually, we're going to put something out that she did that last Sunday. We're going to clip that and make it available because it's the only thing, and it is moving into this heart shock space and sending just first of all starting with people you love and sending them kindness, so it opens that door, and then you start outside of your little circle, and you start doing that all the way to somebody you know is a real problem for you or has been an enemy or whatever, maybe not that serious, but it is by the time that you're done, you're way less wont to push people out because that you couldn't even think of opening the door whatsoever to what you consider is um, completely ignorant, say, to the beliefs that you're living in.
Because very much so, the hatred you harbor for others, that comes back to you, that anger and hatred, if that's what
Yeah.
you're putting out there.
Yep, that's true too. But yeah, awareness of it is, developing awareness. The way that it works is once it is developed enough, you're you're less serious about believing in the shit that you think, and you're creating much more spaciousness to allow something that might be different than the way you thought it would be, because we're projecting all the time. So yeah, that's there too.
I love that. And we have some great comments. Indy, who's here, at what point, actually, this is a question which I want to get to in a moment, but Gregory said there's no such thing as others when you're wishing well on all beings. That's part of the loving kindness practice as
Yep.
well.
Yep.
And we're making notes, by the way, of all these references and books and everything. We'll be putting together an email afterwards of everything that you've referenced in this. Indy, do you want to ask your question on video or audio?
Yeah, I would love to. I mean, for me too, it's been such a great thank you, by the way, for everyone for organizing this. And thank you, Raghu, for just being awesome and continuing to share your awesomeness, being present. Yeah, for me, it's been an interesting journey to be like, to represent, like I was born to a Sikh family. So there's like a really big calling for me to show up, to practice mysticism, to bring that into my life in all kinds of various ways, but then to show up in the world in a meaningful way, to be of service. But I find like this, what is that bridge? Like, I find a lot of people in the mindfulness world, in the yoga community, they sometimes get caught in their bubble of mindfulness. When do we take that into the real world at in the local level and make changes politically or locally, like in a meaningful way? Because being Sikh, that doesn't get shared in the Kundalini space, but like I feel like that's a big part of being Sikh, is that being involved in your governance and your local community in a meaningful way is so important when you're practicing mindfulness and spirituality or whatever. So what are your thoughts on that, and how can we be better at bridging those worlds?
The worlds of what? Mindfulness and
politics.
And politics. Yeah, I guess I just don't think of it that way. I mean, the practice is like you're talking about, until you get your heart cleaned out, you're not going to be able to effectively do anything in terms of social action. Does that mean you should stop doing social action until you become enlightened, or whatever crazy thought somebody might have about that? No, you got to keep doing both. And a little bit of talking to the guru, whatever that is to you, I know that you're doing nothing but what I need to get free. And at the same time, I will be intuitively led to whatever I can do to help anybody. That's it. The rest of it is up to a higher pay grade than us.
What about spiritual bypassing? When we talk about that, is that something that you've looked at or thought about at all?
It's happening every second, all the time with all of this. What are you talking about? We're all just taking, that old self-referential being. Then we got on the path of, wow, power, and you get lost. But we're all getting lost. The point again is to have awareness of motivation, so that you're not so stuck in the projection you're making. You see where your self-referential interest lies. The Buddhists have the greatest term for it: self-cherishing. Me. I gotta have. That's in this movie, Becoming Nobody, right, Jordan? Ram Dass at one point says, "When is it enough? What I want? When is it enough? What I need? It's much more interesting to serve people."
And Carrie said, not familiar with spiritual bypassing. How would you describe that?
It's well, okay. The most transparent thing is you're walking on a street and somebody in front of you kind of trips and falls and hurts their wrist, and you're looking at this and go, huh, bad karma. Okay. That is, of course, the most transparent, gross example, but it gets very subtle, where you're just using supposedly spiritual concepts to not allow yourself to open to something. And you're just going around it. It's a bypass, and so many people could use psychological help is a good thing. Dealing with that mind, especially if it's way out in control, talking to someone is a good thing. It'll help with the kind of bypassing that everybody does once they get on the spiritual path, till they get to a mindful enough place, aware enough place where they're seeing the arising of it's the Eight Noble Truths. That's why the Buddhists, they got it all down and perfectly enunciated in a reality that seems damn good. But anyhow, you see the the motivations, most particularly the kaleshas,
The way that you just described that, it helped me to see it in a new way of that, when we start becoming spiritual, we are very much in our heads, we're intellectualizing. Yeah. And so the point in which we can drop into our hearts, right? And we see that person who trips and falls and we want to go to help them. It's just we don't even think about it. We just go to it.
Exactly.
That's the moving past that bypass.
Yep.
Yeah. You mentioned, you talk a lot about Buddhist philosophies and psychology, and something that I've been curious about on my own path and in studying is, how is the path of bhakti and Neem Karoli Baba and what Ram Dass teaches, how is it different? What are the differences between that and the Buddhist teachings?
Nothing. That's a horrible generalization. As I said, first of all, Neem Karoli Baba did not teach us anything. He just sat with us and he would respond to stuff, or he'd say things out of the blue, but there was no, and there was quotes. I asked him how to meditate. He said, meditate like Christ. When he was nailed to the cross, he felt no pain, only love. He was lost in love with everybody. And then Ram Dass came. There was a whole thing where he turned into Christ. He literally was that moment embodied that thing. And I'm Jewish from Montreal. I didn't know anything about Christ, let me tell you that. And in that moment, that all went away. But the same, so it's funny, you know, when people would ask him about, what do you think about this teacher or that teacher, something, you know, either he wouldn't respond or he'd say something like, well, a true guru is antarayami, knower of all hearts. So they know the past, present, future. There isn't anything that's hidden to a true guru, he said. And then, so they would say, well, is he the true guru? No, no. One day, though, this isn't really answering your question. This is funny little stories, Jordana. One day I was with Krishna Das. I think most of you know who he is. And he had a really bad knee, and he asked me to help him get to the ashram where Neem Karoli Baba was, because he was in just terrible pain and stuff. So we went in there, and Maharaji, he wasn't seeing any Westerners at the time, but he let us in. And then he, you know, he did the most classic thing that you would think, if I didn't even finish the story, you'd probably go, I bet he did this, which is got up, walked around, started limping. Krishnath said to me, oh shit, he's healing. And he did. And of course it happened, you know, he was okay. That had nothing to do with what went on that day, which is he took Krishnath's diary, and in it was Mahamudra, great Buddhist truth prayer. And he had it translated by the translator, and he said, Teek, you know, right on. And then next page is a picture of him, a big picture of him Krishnadas had in the book. And he said, who's that? And we were all, you know, you're joking, you know, joking us. And he said, we said, of course it's you. And he went, nay, Buddha. In that moment, I mean, this is intellectual. In that moment, we're just like blown away by the reality of how, you know, you have an acid trip and everything's interconnected completely. There is only one thing going on. Well, we had that without the acid in that moment. And so to me, we were handed, and here's the real answer, Jordana. We were handed this incredible package, which was the open-hearted devotional aspect of the connection to the divine, and then the Buddhist discriminating wisdom. We had the combo. This is why we had these retreats in Maui. They're so great. I was going through some of them the other day with Jack Kornfield and Sharon and Roshi, how all these incredible Buddhist teachers, and Ram Dass and us, you know, and it was I'm glad I bumped into it. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, I mean, so it's the same for me. Is that Jack Kornfield is one of my teachers who I've gone on retreat with, and you know, the teachings from Ram Dass and Maharaji very much resonate for me, and they speak to a lot of the same things, right? That guru devotion, being in the heart, the wisdom and compassion.